Jessica Pegula does not get bageled. That is the entire point of Jessica Pegula. She is the most reliable ball striker in the top 5. She does not spray errors. She does not have bad patches. She wins by refusing to hand you anything for 2 hours until you crack first. That is how she has stayed inside the world top 10 for 4 straight years. On Monday in Washington, she lost the third set of a final 6 games to Love. In that set, she won 8 points. 8 total. And before that third set even started, she was ahead. She had won the first set 6-4. She was the top seed, the world number 3, playing in her own country, in a tournament she had already won once. Then Alex Eala took the last 9 games of the match off her and never gave one back. Now, about the word rain, because I want to be precise before anybody in the comments beats me to it. Pegula was not the defending champion in Washington. She is still ranked number 3 in the world this morning. The reign that ended was a smaller one and a more personal one. It was the one she held over Alex Eala. Because these two had met exactly once before, March 2025, Miami. The semifinal of a WTA 1000. A 19-year-old wildcard ranked outside the top 100 had just spent a week beating Jelena Ostapenko, then Madison Keys, then Iga Swiatek, and the entire sport had stopped what it was doing to watch her. She was 2 matches from the title. Jessica Pegula was the next opponent. 3 sets later, it was over. The run died right there, and the player who ended it walked into the final. So look at what we have. Same 2 women. Same start, with Pegula taking the opening set. And 2 completely opposite endings, 16 months apart. Something changed in between. And here is the part that is going to annoy some of you, because it is not the thing every clip and every caption is claiming tonight. It was not anger. It was not wanting it more. Revenge is not what won that match, and I would argue revenge is exactly what lost her the first one. So what actually changed? To answer that, we have to go back to Miami and to what kind of problem Jessica Pegula really is. To understand what happened in Washington, you first have to understand what kind of problem Jessica Pegula is. She is not scary in the way people expect a top 5 player to be scary. She does not have a serve that ends points on its own. She does not hit a ball that makes the crowd gasp. Watch a Pegula match cold, and your first thought is usually, wait, is that it? That is the trap. What she does is refuse. She refuses to miss. She takes the ball early, she puts it deep, she puts it in the same place 70 times in a row, and she waits. She does not beat you. She lets you beat yourself, and she is patient enough to wait an entire afternoon for it. Grand Slam finalist. Multiple WTA 1000 titles. 4 straight years in the top 10, which almost nobody does by accident. Now put a 19-year-old across the net from that. March 2025. Alex Eala walks into Miami as a wild card. Not a seed. Not a name on the broadcast graphics. She is ranked outside the top 100, and she has never won a main draw match at a Grand Slam in her life. Never. 0. And then she starts winning. Round 2, she beats Jelena Ostapenko, a French Open champion. Round 3, she beats Madison Keys, the number 5 player in the world, who had won the Australian Open 6 weeks earlier and had not lost a match all season. Then the round of 16, and she beats Iga Swiatek, the number 2 player on the planet, 5 majors at the time. Back-to-back top 10 wins. From a teenager, nobody had game planned for, because nobody had thought they would need to. By the time she reached the semifinal, the story had gone completely vertical. She was the first player from the Philippines to ever reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, and she was 2 wins from a title in one of the biggest events outside the majors. Every neutral fan in the sport had adopted her inside of 9 days. And that is the exact moment the draw handed her Jessica Pegula. Think about how cruel that pairing actually is. Everything that made Eala unstoppable that week was momentum. She was playing free, swinging early, taking risks that a ranked player would not take, riding a crowd and an emotion and a feeling that she could not lose. She was inspiration in tennis shoes. And Pegula is the single worst possible opponent for inspiration. She is the opponent who does not care how you feel. She has no interest in your story. She will make you play the same rally 40 times and see whether the feeling survives the 40th one. Youth against method, adrenaline against arithmetic. A player who had never been in a WTA 1000 semifinal against a player who treats one like a Tuesday. And here is the part that makes it hurt in hindsight. Everyone watching that match, including me, was thinking about what she was 2 wins from. Nobody was thinking about what she was 1 loss from, which turned out to be 16 months of a very specific question that nobody could answer. If you were watching that Miami run live, and I know a lot of you were, because it is one of the most viewed stretches of women's tennis in the last 2 years, do me a favor and tell me in the comments where you were when she beat Swiatek. I want to know how many of you found her that week versus how many of you found her this week. It genuinely changes how the rest of this video is going to hit you, and I read every one of them. Because everybody assumed Miami was the start of something, it turned out to be the start of something else entirely. March 2025, Miami. The semifinal, Eala did not get blown off the court. That is what makes this one linger. She had her chances, she had her looks, she took the match to 3 sets against the number 3 player in the world in front of a crowd that wanted her to win so badly you could hear it. And Pegula just would not go away. Point after point, the ball kept coming back. And every time Eala reached for something bigger to end the rally, the margin got thinner, 3 sets. Gone. The most talked about player in tennis that week walked off the court as the loser, and the run that had rewritten her entire career died 48 hours before the final. Now here is what that loss actually cost her, because it was never just a semifinal. It planted a question. And that question sat there, unanswered, for the next 16 months. She had proven she could beat a big hitter. Keys hits as hard as anyone alive, and Eala beat her. Swiatek generates as much spin and pace as anyone on tour, and Eala beat her. When someone gives Alex Eala power, she is brilliant because she takes it early and redirects it and turns your own weapon around. But Pegula does not give you power. Pegula gives you nothing. So beating a player who hits harder than you is one thing. What do you do against the player who simply never loses her own points? That was the question. And through the rest of 2025, the answer kept not arriving. June 2025, Eastbourne, England. Grass court week before Wimbledon. Eala reaches the first WTA final of her life. Across the net is Maya Joint, an Australian, 19 years old, also playing her first proper final. 2 kids and a trophy. 3rd set. Eala gets to championship point. Stop and actually sit in it for a second. She turns to the towel. The crowd goes quiet in that specific way English grass court crowds go quiet. She bounces the ball. She is 1 point away. Everything she left home for, everything from the ITF tournaments and the empty side courts, is 4 feet away. Have you ever been that close to the one thing you wanted? Not close in a fuzzy way. 1 point close. She missed it. 2nd championship point, missed. 3rd, 4th, 4 match points, 0 taken. She lost that final in a 3rd set tiebreak and walked off with a runner-up plate, and now the question was not about matchups anymore. Now it was about something worse. Now it was about whether she could finish. And the phrase started showing up in previews and podcasts and comment sections. Giant killer. If you know tennis, you know that phrase is an insult wearing a compliment. A giant killer beats the number 2 seed on Tuesday and is nowhere on Sunday. A giant killer is a great story and a bad bet. Nobody hated her. It was worse than being hated. The sport had quietly decided what she was. Then 2026 arrived and made it louder. She came back to Miami in March. Same tournament, same courts. The site of the miracle. She made the round of 16, and there she ran into Karolina Muchova, 60 minutes, 6-0, 6-2. A professional dismantling over almost before it started, in front of the same crowd that had chanted for her a year earlier. And because the ranking points from that magical 2025 semifinal expired that exact same week, the bill came due at the same moment. Her ranking did not just stall, it dropped to 45. Miami gave her everything, and then Miami took it back item by item, in the same building, 12 months apart. Then the clay. May was a grind. Match after match where she competed hard and came up short and the spring quietly disappeared. So how many times can a player be called the future before she starts wondering if the future has an expiration date? And then Wimbledon. And she did it again. She beat Maya Joint, the same player from Eastbourne. Then she beat Iga Swiatek, the defending champion, the woman holding the trophy, in front of everybody. Fourth round, best major of her life. Career high ranking of 28. Then she lost to Jasmine Paolini, and it was over, and the exact same conversation started up on the exact same schedule. Look at where that leaves her by late July 2026. 21 years old, ranked 28. Wins over Swiatek, over Keys, over Gauff, over Rybakina, over Paolini, a highlight reel most players would take an entire career for. And in the two columns that actually count, nothing had moved. WTA Tour titles, 0. Record against Jessica Pegula, 0-1. The question from Miami was still sitting there, 16 months old, and nobody had gotten anywhere near answering it. Then the draw in Washington put the two of them in the same final. And on Sunday afternoon, it started to rain. Sunday in Washington was a disaster before anyone hit a ball. 3 hours of waiting before they were even allowed onto the court. 3 hours of warming up and sitting down and warming up again while the grounds crew watched the radar. Then they finally start, and Pegula takes the first set 6-4, and then the sky opens again and the match is suspended, then 5 more hours. 5. Both players sat in that building the rest of the afternoon and into the evening before officials finally admitted defeat and called it for the day. A tennis match that took 1 hour and 45 minutes of actual play got stretched across almost 24 hours. Now hold on to the score when they stopped, because this is the part that matters. Pegula had the first set, which means Alex Eala went to bed on Sunday night losing, 1 set down, in the biggest final of her life, to the exact woman who had ended her in Miami, with the script from 16 months earlier repeating itself beat for beat, and she had all night to sit with it. Her own description of the whole ordeal afterward was almost funny. She said she thinks she warmed up 1,000 times. So, here is where I have to push back on the entire narrative that is running tonight. The story everybody is telling is that Eala was hungrier, that she wanted it more, that the pain of Miami fueled her, that she went out on Monday and took her revenge. It is a great story. It is also, I think, exactly backwards. Because wanting it more is what beat her in Miami. Think about what happened in that semifinal. She was flying. She was swinging free, going for the line, ending points early, playing on pure feeling. And Pegula ate it. That is what Pegula does for a living. She stands there and lets your emotion right checks your margins cannot cash, and she waits for the 4th or 5th big swing to land 2 inches long. You cannot outfeel Jessica Pegula. Nobody has ever outfelt Jessica Pegula. So watch what Eala actually did on Monday, because it is the opposite of a revenge performance. She got boring. She beat Jessica Pegula by becoming Jessica Pegula. She stopped trying to end points and started refusing to lose them. She served her spots. She took the ball early and put it deep, again and again, and she made the number 3 player in the world be the one who had to find something. Look at the evidence in the scoreline itself. Pegula opens Monday with a nervy service hold to get to 2-2, and from that point forward, she does not touch Eala's serve. Not once. Not a breakpoint that mattered, not a stretch of pressure. Eala holds, and holds, and holds, and in the 10th game of that second set she breaks Pegula and takes it 6-4. There is no highlight from that set. There is no winner that defines it. That is the whole point. Nothing dramatic happened, the wall just changed sides. And once the wall changed sides, Pegula had no answer, because Pegula's answer to everything is patience, and now she was the one who had to break the pattern. Then the third set. Game, 6-love, 8 points lost in the entire set. 9 consecutive games going back to 4-3 down in the second, taken off a player who has spent 4 years in the top 10, specifically because she does not give away games. Jessica Pegula does not get bageled. Jessica Pegula bagels other people. And she stood on that baseline on a Monday afternoon in August with no version of the match left to reach for. So let me put the argument to you directly, because I have been going back and forth on this since the trophy ceremony, and I want to see the comments fight about it. I think this was a win by calm, not a win by anger. I think if Alex Eala had walked out there Monday morning trying to avenge Miami, she loses in straight sets. Tell me if you think I am wrong. Tell me you think the emotion was the fuel. I will read the argument, and honestly the best one in there might end up in the next video. Now, if the calm theory sounds too clever, I get it. Nice theories are usually nonsense. Except this one left fingerprints all over the rest of her week. Because Pegula was not the hardest name in that draw. Forget the final for a second and read the rest of the list. Round of 32, Zheng Qinwen. The reigning Olympic gold medalist, Eala had to come from behind to beat her. Round of 16, Leylah Fernandez. The defending champion of this tournament, a U.S. Open finalist, playing on the courts where she had lifted the trophy 12 months earlier. In the second set, Eala went down 5-1, one game from being sent home. She won that match. Quarterfinal, Elina Svitolina. Second seed, top 10 in the world, 16 career titles, semifinals at every major. Eala did not survive her. She swept her. Semifinal, Naomi Osaka. 4 Grand Slam titles, former world number 1. Straight sets. Final, Jessica Pegula. 5 matches. 4 of them against players who own either a major or an Olympic gold medal. That is not a bracket, that is an obstacle course, and she went through it in 6 days. Now, go back to what I argued in the last section, because this is where it stops being a theory. If Washington was an emotional performance, if this was a player running on adrenaline and revenge, then the pattern in that week would look a certain way. She would have blown people off the court early and scraped through late. She would have won the matches where she got ahead and lost the ones where the pressure landed on her. Look at what actually happened. Behind against Zheng Qinwen. 1. Down 5-1 against the defending champion. 1. A set down in the final against the world number 3. 1. 3 separate comebacks in a single week. The player the entire sport had labeled as someone who could not close, spent 6 days closing from positions where she was supposed to fold. You do not do that on feeling. Feeling is what evaporates when you are down 5-1 in a second set. That is discipline, and discipline is the exact thing she did not have in Miami. Second piece of evidence, and this is the number almost nobody is quoting. With Svitolina and Pegula, Alex Eala's winning streak against top 10 opponents is now 5 matches in a row. Her career record against the top 10 is 9 wins and 4 losses. And 7 of those 9 wins came in 2026 alone. Read the names from this season. Iga Swiatek, Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, Jasmine Paolini, Elina Svitolina, twice. Jessica Pegula. 7 top 10 wins in 1 year, and here is the part that should stop you cold. That puts her level with Elena Rybakina for top 10 wins this season. Level with Svitolina too. A player who began the week ranked 28th in the world has taken as many top 10 scalps in 2026 as a Wimbledon champion has. That number is sitting right there in the results and nobody is saying it out loud, because the coverage is still writing about her as a nice story instead of as a problem. Third piece, the least romantic and most honest one, the ranking. Washington paid 500 points, the largest single tournament haul of her career. It took her from 1,666 points to 2,106. She jumped 8 places, from 28 to number 20 inches the world. Career high, at 21 years old. And here is a small one I love. Going into that final, Jessica Pegula was chasing the 12th title of her career. Alex Eala was chasing her first. 11 trophies of difference standing on opposite sides of the same net, and the one with 0-1. So now, come all the way back to the question I asked you at the top of this video. Same 2 players, same opening set, opposite endings, 16 months apart. What changed? Not the forehand. Not the fitness, not the hunger, and definitely not the anger. What changed is that in Miami she was trying to be spectacular, and in Washington she was willing to be unremarkable for as long as it took. In Miami, she needed the match to be short, because that is what a 19-year-old riding a wave needs. In Washington, she was fine with it lasting 2 days. That is the whole answer. She stopped playing like the underdog in the story and started playing like the person who expected to still be there at the end. And the ledger with Pegula now reads 1 win apiece, which is a very strange place for a rivalry to sit when both of their names are in the same draw this week. Here is the detail that makes this almost too neat. Washington is where Jessica Pegula won her own breakthrough title back in 2019. Same tournament, same trophy, 7 years apart. The event that built her career just handed itself to the player chasing her down. And that is what actually happened last weekend, once you stand far enough back. This was not one woman getting even with another. This was a handoff nobody put on the schedule, because Pegula is a specific kind of gatekeeper. Losing to a big hitter on a hot day means nothing. That happens to everybody. Losing to Pegula means you were not solid enough, not patient enough, not disciplined enough to stay in a rally that has no reward in it. That is the last lock young players learn to pick, and most of them need 3 or 4 years of failing at it first. Alex Eala picked it on her second attempt. At 21. In a final. A set down, with a night of sleep in the middle of it. That is the real headline, and it is not the one in the thumbnail. Not the revenge. The speed. And Pegula understood it immediately, which is why the best things said all weekend came from the person holding the runner-up plate. She talked about how far this kid has come since the first time they played. She talked about the crowds that follow Eala into every city on the calendar, and she said it is not fun to play against, and then she said it is amazing. She meant both of those, and only one of them cost her anything to say. So nobody actually got beaten in Washington. Somebody arrived, and somebody was gracious about being the door. Which brings us to the only part of this that is still open. The head-to-head reads 1-all. 1 win each, 16 months apart, both of them going the distance. That is not a settled score. That is a series tied at 1 with no third game scheduled. Except there might be one this week. They are both in Toronto right now. Eala is seeded 25th with a first-round bye. Pegula is up near the top of the draw. If they each do their job, these two can be standing across a net from each other inside of 6 days. On a hard court, at a WTA 1000, with everything from the last 2 matches sitting in the room with them. And if not Toronto, then New York. The US Open is 3 weeks out, the place where Eala won the first Grand Slam match of her life, where she now walks in seeded and ranked 20th in the world. Neither of them is going to leave this at 1-all. Nobody leaves it at 1-all. We are covering every round of Toronto and every round of the US Open on this channel, so subscribe and be here when they meet again, because match 3 is the one that answers the question this entire video has been circling. Not who wanted it more. Which of these 2 matches was the fluke? Miami said one thing, Washington said the exact opposite. And the only person who can settle the argument is on a practice court in Canada this morning, getting ready to try.